If you cannot sit alone in silence without reaching for distraction, your freedom is an illusion. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of meeting themselves. The moment the noise fades, doubts rise, regrets replay, insecurity whispers, and instead of facing it, they escape into messages, into screens, into constant stimulation. But depending on others for happiness is emotional fragility. If your mood rises and falls based on who texts you, who stays, who validates you, then your stability is not yours. It belongs to someone else. Real strength begins when you learn to be happy alone, not lonely, not withdrawn, but grounded, calm, self-sufficient. Solitude is not punishment. It is training. It exposes your thoughts. It reveals your emotional patterns. It shows you whether you are complete or dependent. And what you practice in silence rewires your mind. This audiobook will teach you how to turn loneliness into power, silence into clarity, and independence into strength. Because once you master your own company, nothing outside of you can truly control your peace. If you're ready to rise above the noise, like the video, it tells YouTube you're choosing awareness over autopilot. Subscribe now, and don't miss the next chapter in your evolution. And remember, the deepest transformation belongs to those who stay until the very end. Chapter 1. Accept your loneliness and turn it into personal power. When you are alone, something powerful begins to happen inside you. The noise of the world fades, and your own thoughts become clearer. Without constant conversation, without endless distraction, you begin to see yourself without filters. Most people fear this moment. They interpret loneliness as weakness. They rush to fill the silence because they believe being alone means being unwanted. But the truth is far different. Learning to accept your loneliness is one of the strongest steps you can take toward personal growth. Loneliness is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is a signal. It is the human mind acknowledging its desire for connection and meaning. That desire is natural. It means you are alive. It means you want depth. But here is where most people lose control. Instead of facing loneliness, they resist it. They chase attention. They lower their standards. They settle for company that does not respect them. They try to escape the discomfort instead of understanding it. When you resist loneliness, you suffer more. You become restless. You search for someone to fill the gap. And in that search, you hand over your power. Your happiness becomes dependent on who responds, who stays, who validates you. That dependency weakens you. But the moment you stop fighting loneliness, something shifts. When you say, "This is where I am right now, and I accept it," you regain control. Acceptance is not surrender. It is ownership. When you accept loneliness, you stop chasing people just to avoid silence. You stop begging for attention. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's presence. You stand with yourself fully, and that is where personal strength begins. The first step is honesty. When you are alone, ask yourself what you truly feel. Do you feel uneasy? Do you feel invisible? Do you feel anxious without messages or noise? Write it down. Name it. The act of naming your emotion reduces its intensity. Neuroscience shows that when you label what you feel, the emotional centers of the brain calm down. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Awareness weakens fear. Understand this clearly. Feeling lonely does not mean you are broken. It means you are human, but remaining dependent on others to escape loneliness keeps you fragile. When your sense of value depends on attention, one rejection can collapse your confidence. One breakup can shatter your stability. One ignored message can ruin your day. That is not because you are weak. It is because your foundation was external. When you accept loneliness and stay with it, you begin building an internal foundation. You discover that your worth does not disappear when someone leaves. You realize that silence does not harm you. You see that emotions rise and fall like waves if you allow them to pass without panic. This is emotional strength. There is a deeper transformation happening beneath the surface. Every time you sit with loneliness instead of escaping it, you are retraining your nervous system. You are teaching your brain that silence is safe. You are reducing your reactivity. Over time, the discomfort shrinks. What once felt unbearable becomes neutral. What once felt threatening becomes normal. And from that calmness, clarity emerges. Loneliness, when accepted, becomes space. Space to ask yourself powerful questions. What do I really want? What do I value? What kind of life am I building? Most people never pause long enough to ask these questions. They are too busy reacting. But in solitude, without outside influence, your real answers appear. You begin to discover your authentic preferences, not what others expect you to like, not what trends tell you to chase, but what genuinely aligns with you. That clarity is priceless. It directs your future decisions. It protects you from living a life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty inside. Another way to turn loneliness into power is through deliberate growth. Alone time is raw material. It can either weaken you or strengthen you, depending on how you use it. When you are alone, you have hours that many waste. You can scroll endlessly and feel emptier, or you can read, train, reflect, build, and improve. Each investment in yourself increases your independence. Progress creates pride, and pride in yourself is the antidote to loneliness. When you see yourself improving, you no longer crave constant validation. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. And self-respect is more stable than any outside approval. Accepting loneliness also means facing insecurities. When the world is quiet, doubts grow louder, thoughts about past mistakes, fears about the future, worries about not being enough. These voices seem powerful, but they only dominate when ignored. When you face them directly and question them, they lose authority. Ask yourself, is this thought true, or is it fear pretending to be truth? Most of the time, it is fear, and fear weakens when exposed to light. By observing your thoughts instead of obeying them, you gain mastery over your inner world. This mastery is real power. Loneliness also teaches responsibility. It teaches you that no one is coming to rescue you from your own mind. That realization can feel heavy at first, but it is liberating. When you understand that you are responsible for your growth, your stability, and your direction, you stop waiting. You start acting. Do not confuse acceptance with isolation. This is not about cutting people out of your life. It is about strengthening yourself so that relationships become a choice, not a necessity. When you are strong alone, you connect from fullness. You give love because you have it. You do not beg for it because you lack it. There is something almost gravitational about this transformation. When you stop chasing, your energy stabilizes. When your energy stabilizes, you become more grounded. People sense that steadiness. You are no longer desperate for attention. You are calm in your own presence. That calmness is attractive because it signals security. Tonight, practice this. Sit alone for 30 minutes without distraction. No phone, no background noise. Just you and your thoughts. Notice what rises. Do not run. Do not judge. Observe. Write down what you feel. Do this repeatedly, and watch how the intensity decreases. Watch how your tolerance increases. Watch how your confidence strengthens. The moment you understand that being alone is not a punishment, but an opportunity, everything changes. You stop lowering your standards just to avoid silence. You stop tolerating disrespect out of fear. You stop filling your life with noise to escape yourself. Instead, you rise. You look at yourself and say, I am building my life, even if I am building it alone right now. And that mindset builds something unshakable. When you accept your loneliness and turn it into personal power, you are no longer at the mercy of anyone else for your happiness. You carry your own stability. You generate your own confidence. You create your own meaning. That is strength. Chapter 2. Silence is where most people discover how little control they have over their own mind. When there is no music playing, no screen glowing, no conversation filling the air, the mind begins to reveal what it has been hiding. Doubts grow louder. Worries about the future rise. Regrets from the past replay. Many people escape this moment immediately. They turn on noise. They reach for stimulation. They convince themselves that silence is uncomfortable, boring, or even threatening. But silence is not the problem. The untrained mind is. If you want to be happy alone, you must build a mind that does not fear silence. Because without that strength, solitude will always feel like punishment instead of power. A strong mind is not built in constant noise. It is built in stillness, in the quiet moments where you are forced to observe your thoughts instead of running from them. Most people live on the surface of their thinking. They react automatically. They accept every thought as truth. But when you sit in silence, you begin to see your thoughts as separate from who you are. This separation is the beginning of mastery. Silence is not your enemy. It is your training ground. When you treat silence as something to avoid, you become dependent on distraction. And distraction weakens attention. Modern life conditions the brain to expect constant stimulation. Every notification releases a small reward. Every scroll keeps your attention fragmented. Over time, your nervous system becomes overstimulated, and quiet feels unbearable. But this is not permanent. The brain adapts to repetition. If you repeatedly expose yourself to silence, your tolerance increases. Your nervous system stabilizes. What once felt overwhelming becomes neutral. And eventually, silence becomes productive. Start small. Schedule 5 or 10 minutes each day with no input, no phone, no background noise. Just sit. At first, your thoughts will feel chaotic. You may feel restless. You may want to quit. That is normal. It is simply your brain adjusting to a lack of stimulation. Stay anyway. As you sit, notice patterns. Which thoughts repeat? Which fears dominate? Which doubts surface most often? Instead of accepting them as truth, question them. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me? Is it even accurate? A strong mind does not believe everything it thinks. It evaluates. It filters. It chooses. This ability to question your own thoughts is mental strength. Silence also increases depth of thinking. Without constant interruption, your brain begins connecting ideas more clearly. Solutions appear. Insights surface. Creativity expands. Research shows that focused attention and mental rest allow deeper processing. When you are always consuming information, you rarely generate your own. Silence restores independent thinking. Another important skill is learning to regulate your body in silence. When negative thoughts appear, your body often reacts first. Your heart rate rises, your muscles tense, Your breathing becomes shallow. This physical reaction makes the thought feel more real. But you can reverse it. Slow your breathing intentionally. Inhale steadily. Exhale slowly. When you control your breath, you calm your nervous system. When your body calms, your mind follows. This is not abstract. It is physiological. You are signaling safety to your brain. Over time, this practice builds resilience. You become less reactive, more stable, more composed. Silence also teaches you that boredom is not dangerous. Many people cannot tolerate boredom. The moment stimulation drops, they panic internally. But boredom is simply the absence of input. If you can sit in boredom without reaching for distraction, you strengthen your focus. You train patience. You build discipline. Think of silence like lifting weights for your mind. At first, it feels heavy. But every session strengthens your attention. Every moment you resist distraction increases your mental endurance. Eventually, you notice something powerful. You are no longer controlled by impulses. You choose where your attention goes. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you have. Where you place it shapes your experience of life. If your attention is constantly pulled outward, you will feel scattered. But if you can direct your attention inward and hold it steady, you become grounded, stable, intentional. Reflection is another tool strengthened in silence. Ask yourself deeper questions. What am I avoiding? What habit is holding me back? What truth have I been ignoring? These questions may be uncomfortable, but strength is built by facing reality, not escaping it. Weak minds avoid truth. Strong minds confront it and grow. Silence also shrinks exaggerated fears. In the noise of daily life, problems feel larger than they are. But when you sit quietly and examine them calmly, many worries lose intensity. You begin to see that most fears are projections, not facts. That clarity builds confidence. The world is loud and chaotic. There will always be distractions competing for your focus. If you do not train your mind in silence, you will be pulled in every direction. But if you can remain steady when it is quiet, you will remain steady when life becomes difficult. Silence prepares you for pressure. There is also an energetic shift that happens when you become comfortable in silence. Your presence changes. You speak more deliberately. You react less impulsively. You listen more deeply. You move with intention instead of urgency. People sense this steadiness. It is not loud, but it is powerful. Make silence a daily discipline. Increase your quiet time gradually. 5 minutes becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. Add journaling. Write down your thoughts without judgment. Over time, you will see progress in your thinking. You will notice that doubts lose intensity faster. That clarity arrives sooner. That focus strengthens. Remember, silence is not emptiness. It is space. Space to think. Space to reset. Space to rebuild. Weak minds avoid it because it exposes chaos. Strong minds use it because it builds order. When you master silence, something profound happens. You stop fearing your own thoughts. You stop needing constant noise to feel alive. You discover that peace is not found in distraction, but in control. And once your mind becomes steady in silence, nothing outside of you can easily disturb your balance. That is real strength. Chapter 3. Happiness becomes fragile the moment you attach it to someone else's behavior. If you believe you will only feel joy when someone texts you, praises you, chooses you, or stays beside you, then your emotional state is no longer yours. It belongs to whoever decides to show up. And when they do not, your mood collapses. This is how many people live. They wait. They hope. They measure their worth by attention. And in that waiting, they overlook the simple moments that could have brought them peace. Real strength begins when you learn to enjoy the ordinary parts of your life without depending on anyone else to make them meaningful. Look at your daily routine. You wake up, you breathe, you eat, you walk, you work, you rest. These moments seem small, almost invisible, but they are your life. Most people rush through them distracted. They eat while scrolling. They walk while worrying. They rest while replaying conversations. Their body is present, but their attention is somewhere else. Happiness is not absent. Attention is. When you train yourself to slow down and fully experience simple moments, you build a type of independence that cannot be shaken by someone else's absence. Drink your water with awareness. Feel the temperature. Notice the sensation. Eat your meals without noise. Taste the flavors. Walk and pay attention to the rhythm of your steps. Notice the air on your skin. These are not trivial exercises. They are training for presence. Science supports this. When you focus your attention deliberately on sensory experience, you activate areas of the brain associated with calmness and emotional regulation. Your stress decreases. Your mind stops racing. Presence stabilizes you. But beyond the biology, something deeper happens. When you appreciate simple moments, you send a message to yourself. I am capable of feeling good without external permission. That message builds confidence quietly. It teaches you that joy is not something handed to you. It is something you generate through awareness. Another trap that steals happiness is comparison. You look at others and assume their joy comes from relationships, status, or constant activity. You see images of gatherings, achievements, and excitement, and you conclude that your quiet life is lacking. But appearances are curated. Even people surrounded by others can feel empty if they do not know how to enjoy their own company. Comparison blinds you to your own blessings. It makes you feel behind, even when you are progressing. It shifts your attention outward and weakens gratitude. When you replace comparison with appreciation for your own life, something changes. Your focus returns home. Start noticing small victories. You completed a task. You kept a promise to yourself. You stayed disciplined when it was difficult. These moments deserve recognition. Do not wait for others to applaud you. Acknowledge yourself. Self-recognition builds internal validation. Create rituals that belong only to you. A morning stretch in silence. A walk at dusk. Tea prepared slowly without distraction. A notebook where you write reflections each night. These rituals create emotional stability. They remind you that you can feel grounded, even if no one else is around. Gratitude strengthens this practice. Each day, identify 3 simple things you appreciate. Not grand achievements, ordinary details, the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of clean sheets, the sound of rain. When you write them down, you retrain your attention. The brain adapts to what it repeatedly focuses on. If you focus on lack, you amplify dissatisfaction. If you focus on presence, you amplify contentment. Over time, this rewires your perception. You begin noticing beauty automatically. The ordinary becomes rich. The routine becomes meaningful. And because your happiness is built from within your own perception, it becomes stable. There will still be moments when negative thoughts appear. Thoughts like, I am missing out, or I need someone here to feel complete. Do not panic when these arise. Observe them. Remind yourself that they are habits of thought, not truths. Redirect your focus to what is in front of you. Feel your breath. Notice your surroundings. Take a small action that builds progress. Independence does not mean you reject connection. It means you do not collapse without it. When you can enjoy your own company, relationships become healthier. You spend time with others because you choose to, not because you fear being alone. You connect from strength instead of desperation. When you depend on others for happiness, you give them control over your emotional state. When you cultivate joy in simple moments, you take that control back. Practice mindful observation. Choose an object in your environment, a candle, a plant, a book. Study it for a few minutes. Notice details you usually ignore. This trains patience. It slows your mind. It strengthens your capacity to extract richness from simplicity. The more you practice this, the more resilient you become. Challenges feel lighter because you always have access to grounding practices. Breathing, walking, observing, appreciating. These are always available. No one can take them from you. Happiness is not hidden in dramatic experiences. It is hidden in attention. When you master your attention, you master your mood. When you master your mood, you master your independence. Look at your life honestly. How many days have you rushed past moments that could have brought peace? How much energy have you wasted chasing validation while ignoring quiet joy? The power to change this is in your hands. Today, slow down deliberately. Choose one ordinary activity and experience it fully. Train your awareness. Build joy from within. Repeat daily. Eventually, you will notice something powerful. You no longer feel restless when alone. You no longer need constant messages to feel valued. You no longer interpret silence as emptiness. You stand steady in simple moments. And that steadiness is freedom. Chapter 4. Negative thoughts are not the problem. Your reaction to them is. Every human mind produces doubt. It produces fear. It replays mistakes. It imagines worst-case scenarios. This is not a flaw. It is part of survival wiring. The mind scans for threats, even when none are present. But when you are alone, these thoughts often feel louder. There is no conversation to drown them out, no distraction to mute them. And if you are not trained, they can control your mood completely. Happiness in solitude requires one essential skill: the ability to stay calm when negative thoughts appear. The first truth you must understand is simple but powerful. A thought is not reality. It is not permanent. It is not a command. It is a mental event. Yet many people treat every negative thought as if it were a final verdict. The mind says, "You are not good enough," and they accept it as fact. The mind says, "You will fail," and they surrender before trying. The mistake is not having the thought. The mistake is believing it automatically. Calmness creates distance. When a negative thought appears, pause. Do not react instantly. Take a slow breath. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel it leaving. This single act interrupts the stress response in your body. Your heart rate begins to settle. Your muscles loosen. When your body calms, your mind becomes easier to manage. This is not theory. It is physiology. Slow breathing activates the part of your nervous system responsible for safety and regulation. When you regulate your body, you reduce the intensity of the thought. After the pause, question the thought. Ask, is this objectively true? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? Often you will discover that the thought is exaggerated. It is fear speaking loudly, not truth speaking calmly. For example, your mind may say, "You are wasting your life." Instead of collapsing into despair, examine it. Have you truly made no progress? Or have you improved in small ways you overlooked? The mind often ignores growth and magnifies flaws. When you challenge it with evidence, its power weakens. Another powerful method is redirection through action. Negative thoughts grow when you sit still and feed them attention. If your mind begins spiraling, stand up. Complete a small, meaningful task. Clean your space. Write one page. Go for a walk. Action disrupts rumination. It reminds your brain that you are not trapped. You are capable. Acceptance is also essential. Many people fight negative thoughts aggressively. They become angry at themselves for thinking negatively. They say, "I should not feel this way." That resistance adds another layer of stress. Instead, accept that negative thoughts are part of being human. You do not need to eliminate them. You only need to manage them. When you observe a thought without judgment, it passes more quickly. Imagine your thoughts as clouds moving across the sky. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. The cloud may be dark, but it cannot stain the sky permanently. This perspective builds emotional strength. It is also important to identify triggers. Certain habits amplify negativity. Endless comparison on social media, lack of sleep, unstructured days, harsh self-talk. When you notice patterns, you gain control. You can reduce exposure. You can prepare for vulnerable moments. Awareness turns reaction into strategy. Gratitude is another stabilizing force. Negative thoughts often focus on what is missing. Gratitude shifts focus to what is present. When your mind says, "You have nothing," counter it with evidence. You have breath. You have time. You have the ability to improve. Gratitude does not deny difficulty. It balances perspective. Keep a record of your progress. Write down your accomplishments, no matter how small. When doubt appears, review that record. Proof silences distortion. Your brain cannot argue easily with written evidence of growth. Self-compassion strengthens calmness. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you respect. If a friend struggled, you would not attack them. You would encourage them. Offer yourself the same courtesy. Strength does not require cruelty. It requires consistency and understanding. Discipline also reduces mental chaos. When your days lack structure, your thoughts wander without direction. Build simple routines. Wake at a consistent time. Move your body daily. Set small goals. Structure creates stability. Stability reduces anxiety. Anxiety feeds negative thinking. Order weakens it. Visualization is another training tool. Imagine yourself handling stress calmly. See yourself breathing steadily. See yourself questioning thoughts instead of obeying them. Repeated visualization strengthens neural pathways. When real stress appears, your brain follows the pattern you practiced. Physical movement is powerful. The body and mind are connected. When you move, you release tension. You produce energy. You interrupt mental loops. Even 10 minutes of movement can shift your state dramatically. Remember, calmness is not the absence of difficulty. It is control within difficulty. Life will present challenges. People will criticize. Plans will fail. But when you train yourself to respond calmly, instead of react impulsively, you maintain power. Over time, something remarkable happens. Thoughts that once shook you lose their intensity. You hear doubt, but you do not obey it. You feel fear, but you do not collapse. You remain steady. This steadiness is freedom. Because when your mind no longer controls you, silence becomes safe. Solitude becomes stable. You stop fearing your own thoughts. Negative thoughts may still appear, but they no longer dominate. They pass, and you remain standing. That is mental mastery. Chapter 5. Security is not something you find in another person. It is something you build within yourself through structure. Many people search for safety in relationships, in money, in recognition. They believe that once they obtain the right circumstances, they will finally feel stable. But circumstances change. People leave. Markets shift. Opinions fluctuate. If your sense of security is tied to external factors, it will always be fragile. True security is built through routine. A personal routine is not a rigid prison. It is a framework that protects your energy. It gives your days rhythm. It reduces chaos. It reminds your mind that even when the world is unpredictable, your internal structure remains steady. When you wake up without direction, you drift. You check messages. You react to news. You let other people's priorities shape your time. This reactive living creates subtle anxiety. Your day feels scattered because it has no anchor. But when you design a routine intentionally, you reclaim control. Start with your mornings. How you begin the day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you wake up and immediately consume noise, your mind enters reaction mode. But if you wake up and take a few intentional actions, drink water, stretch, breathe deeply, write a few lines in a journal, you send a message to your brain: I am in control. These small acts are powerful. They build self-trust. Each time you follow through, you reinforce your reliability to yourself. Routine reduces decision fatigue. Every choice you make drains a small amount of mental energy. When you have structured habits, you eliminate unnecessary decisions. You free your attention for meaningful work and growth. This creates calmness because your brain is not constantly negotiating with itself. Your routine should reflect your values. If health matters, include movement and nourishing meals. If clarity matters, include reflection time. If growth matters, include reading or skill practice. Every habit becomes a vote for the identity you are building. Consistency transforms habits into security. Anyone can perform well for a day. Strength is built by repeating actions even when motivation is low. When you keep your promises to yourself repeatedly, you develop self-respect. Self-respect is the deepest form of stability. Trusting yourself changes everything. When you know you will wake up and follow your routine, you stop doubting your discipline. You stop feeling unstable. You walk with confidence because your foundation is solid. Evening routines matter as much as mornings. If you end your day in chaos, scrolling endlessly, sleeping late, consuming noise, you rob yourself of recovery. But if you wind down intentionally, reflecting on progress, preparing for tomorrow, disconnecting from stimulation, you allow your nervous system to reset. Sleep becomes deeper. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotional control improves. Balance is essential. A routine is not about relentless productivity. It must include rest. Growth requires recovery. A balanced routine, work, movement, reflection, rest, creates sustainability. Without balance, you burn out. Burnout weakens security. Your routine must also be flexible. Life will disrupt plans. Some days will not go perfectly. Do not abandon structure because of one missed step. Adapt and return. Security is built on persistence, not perfection. There is also a neurological component. The brain thrives on predictability. When it knows what to expect, stress decreases. When habits are stable, cortisol levels stabilize. You feel calmer because your system recognizes familiar patterns. Routine becomes an internal signal of safety. Each repeated habit strengthens neural pathways. Over time, discipline becomes automatic. What once required effort becomes natural. This automation frees mental space and reduces anxiety. Routines also shape identity. If you read daily, you become someone who values knowledge. If you exercise consistently, you become someone who values strength. If you reflect each night, you become someone who values awareness. Identity built through repetition feels stable. And identity stability is security. When life throws challenges at you, your routine becomes your anchor. You fall back on your structure. You move your body. You write your thoughts. You follow your habits. This consistency prevents emotional collapse. It gives you tools to manage stress. Without routine, stress feels overwhelming because you have no structure to hold you. With routine, stress becomes manageable because you have established systems. Think of your routine as an orbit. The world may spin unpredictably, but your orbit remains steady. This rhythm stabilizes your energy. It grounds you. It keeps you aligned. Start small. Choose 3 habits to anchor your day. Maybe it is waking at a consistent time, moving for 15 minutes, and writing 3 reflections at night. Build slowly. Let success compound. Over weeks and months, your sense of control increases. Your anxiety decreases. Your confidence rises. Not because life became easier, but because you became more structured. Routine gives you something powerful. Proof. Proof that you can rely on yourself. Proof that you can maintain order. Proof that your life is directed, not drifting. Security built this way cannot be taken from you easily. It is not dependent on someone else's behavior. It is not dependent on perfect conditions. It is built daily, repeated quietly, strengthened consistently. And when you know that no matter what happens externally, you will wake up and follow your structure, you stop fearing uncertainty. Because you trust yourself. That trust is real security. Chapter 6. The real test of your character is not who you are when people are watching. It is who you are when no one sees you. Most people perform well under observation. They work harder when praised. They act disciplined when evaluated. They push themselves when recognition is near. But when the audience disappears, their effort fades. They relax their standards. They delay their goals. They negotiate with their discipline. If your growth depends on applause, it will stop when the applause stops. True strength is built in private. When you are alone, there is no performance, no image to protect, no praise to chase. There is only you and your choices. These unseen hours determine your future more than any public moment ever will. Ask yourself honestly, what do you do when nobody checks on you? Do you keep your word to yourself? Do you finish what you start? Or do you cut corners because no one will notice? Your answer reveals your true level of discipline. Growth that lasts is built through integrity. Integrity means your behavior is consistent, whether observed or not. You train your body, even if no one compliments you. You read, even if no one knows. You improve quietly because you value who you are, becoming more than how you are perceived. This is self-respect. When you respect yourself, you hold yourself accountable. You do not wait for someone else to push you. You create your own standards. You define what is acceptable, and then you live by it. One powerful strategy is to set daily expectations clearly. Write down what you will accomplish. Keep the list realistic but firm. When the time comes to act, follow through. Each time you honor your commitment, your self-trust increases. Each time you break it without reason, your self-trust weakens. Self-trust compounds like interest. Small, consistent actions build massive confidence over time. Temptation will appear strongest when you are alone. It is easy to scroll for hours, easy to delay tasks, easy to choose comfort. But every small decision shapes your identity. Each time you give in to distraction, you reinforce weakness. Each time you push through resistance, you reinforce strength. The brain operates through repetition. Repeated discipline strengthens neural pathways associated with control. Repeated indulgence strengthens pathways of impulsivity. You are wiring your future behavior with every private choice. Understand this deeply. Invisible effort creates visible results. The athlete trains for hours unseen before stepping into competition. The writer drafts countless pages no one reads before publishing. The builder lays foundation bricks underground before anyone sees the structure rise. Your unseen work matters. Reflection strengthens private discipline. At the end of each day, review your actions. Did you honor your standards? Where did you hesitate? What can improve tomorrow? This habit turns you into both student and coach. You correct yourself without waiting for criticism. Long-term goals also strengthen private growth. If your goals exist only to impress others, your motivation will disappear when recognition fades. But if your goals align with your personal values, health, knowledge, mastery, you will continue regardless of who notices. When your motivation becomes internal, you become independent. Patience is essential. Private progress often feels invisible. You may work for weeks without dramatic change, but growth is not always immediate. Roots expand underground long before branches appear. Trust the process. Consistency eventually reveals itself. Delayed gratification is another test. Choosing what benefits your future over what comforts your present builds resilience. Study instead of distraction. Train instead of avoidance. Save instead of impulse spending. Each disciplined choice strengthens your future identity. Freedom emerges from this discipline. When you no longer rely on external pressure to perform, you are self-driven. You do not need constant supervision. You move because you decided to move. This independence is powerful. It means your growth is under your control. No one can slow it except you. Eventually, your private discipline becomes visible. People will notice your confidence, your stability, your results. They will ask how you changed. They will see the outcome, not the silent effort behind it. But you will know the truth. You pushed yourself when it was quiet. You worked when it was tempting to rest. You honored your word when no one was checking. Every morning gives you a choice. Rise with intention or drift into distraction. Every afternoon gives you a choice. Build your goal or waste the hour. Every evening gives you a choice. Prepare for tomorrow or neglect your progress. These choices seem small, but repeated daily, they shape your character. Character built in private becomes strength in public. When you master the ability to push yourself without applause, you no longer depend on approval. You no longer collapse when recognition disappears. You become stable because your effort is self-directed. That stability transforms solitude. Being alone no longer feels empty. It feels productive. It feels purposeful. You are no longer afraid of private time because you use it to grow. And that growth, built quietly and consistently, becomes the foundation of a life you respect. Chapter 7. One of the deepest chains that keeps people restless in solitude is the need for approval. From early in life, you are conditioned to look outward for validation. Praise from parents, grades from teachers, recognition from peers, applause from society. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that your worth depends on how others respond to you. When they approve, you feel valuable. When they criticize, you feel diminished. But approval is unstable. It shifts with opinion, mood, and circumstance. If your identity is built on it, your emotional state will always fluctuate. To be happy alone, You must learn to validate yourself. When you depend on others to confirm your value, you hand them control over your mood. One compliment can lift you. One negative comment can undo weeks of confidence. This instability creates anxiety. You begin adjusting your behavior, not to align with your values, but to secure approval. This is exhausting. Self-validation begins with self-awareness. You must know what you stand for. What do you value? What qualities matter to you? Discipline, honesty, growth, compassion, clarity. If you do not define your own standards, you will unconsciously adopt someone else's. Spend time reflecting. Write down your strengths. Identify areas you are improving. Clarify the direction you want your life to move. When your life is guided by your own principles, you no longer need constant external confirmation. Celebrate your own progress. If you complete a difficult task, acknowledge it. If you remain disciplined when tempted, recognize it. If you correct a mistake and improve, respect that effort. Waiting for others to notice your growth keeps you dependent. Noticing it yourself builds independence. Criticism will always exist. No matter what you do, someone will disagree. If your worth is tied to approval, criticism will destabilize you. But if your worth is anchored internally, criticism becomes information, not identity. You evaluate it calmly. You take what is useful. You discard what is not. Self-validation also requires boundaries. When you crave approval, you say yes to everything. You overextend yourself. You avoid disagreement. You sacrifice authenticity for acceptance. But when you validate yourself, you can say no without guilt. You can protect your time and energy. You understand that agreement is not a requirement for worth. Imperfection is part of growth. Many seek approval because they believe they must appear flawless. They hide weaknesses. They fear mistakes. But perfection is an illusion. Real strength is admitting error, learning, and continuing. When you validate yourself, mistakes do not threaten your identity. They refine it. A practical method to strengthen self-validation is journaling your evidence. Record your progress. Document your effort. Write about challenges you handled well. When doubt arises, return to these records. Proof reduces insecurity. Affirmations grounded in reality also help. Not empty phrases, but statements aligned with truth. I am improving. I kept my word today. I handled that situation with discipline. Repeating truthful reinforcement reshapes your internal dialogue. Comparison weakens self-validation. When you measure yourself constantly against others, you shift your focus outward. You evaluate your progress by someone else's timeline. But your journey is unique. Growth is personal. The only comparison that matters is who you were yesterday. Grant yourself permission. Too many people wait for approval to chase goals. They hesitate because they fear judgment. But you do not need permission to grow. You do not need consensus to act. When your decisions align with your values, that alignment is enough. Self-validation stabilizes relationships. When you do not depend on others for worth, you stop placing pressure on them to constantly reassure you. You connect from confidence. You give freely because you are not secretly seeking validation in return. This internal shift transforms solitude. When you validate yourself, being alone does not threaten you. You do not need an audience to feel valuable. You do not need constant messages to confirm your existence. Your effort matters because you decide it matters. The mind naturally seeks external feedback, but you can retrain it. Each time you complete a task and internally acknowledge it, you weaken the dependency loop. Each time you stand by your values without seeking approval, you strengthen your internal foundation. Over time, you will notice a difference. You walk with more certainty. You speak with more clarity. You hesitate less, not because everyone approves of you, but because you approve of yourself. This does not mean ignoring feedback. Growth requires listening, but the difference is this. Feedback informs your improvement, not your worth. Your value remains stable. Life becomes lighter when you stop chasing approval. You stop analyzing every interaction. You stop replaying conversations to evaluate how you were perceived. You redirect that energy toward progress. The more you validate yourself, the less you fear rejection. Rejection no longer feels like proof of inadequacy. It becomes redirection. You understand that not everyone will align with you, and that is acceptable. This stability creates emotional independence. You are not easily shaken by praise or criticism. You remain steady, and steadiness in solitude is power. When you no longer outsource your worth, you reclaim control of your identity. You become self-directed, self-respecting, self-sustained, and that is freedom. Chapter 8. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to destroy your peace in solitude. The moment you measure your life against someone else's highlight, you disconnect from your own path. You see their success, their relationship, their recognition, and you quietly begin to question your own progress. You ask why you are not further ahead, why your life does not look as impressive, why your quiet days feel small compared to their visible achievements. Comparison creates dissatisfaction even when you are growing. It is endless. No matter how much you accomplish, there will always be someone who appears to have more. If your happiness depends on ranking yourself against others, you will never feel complete. Even success will feel temporary, because you will immediately look for someone doing better. The antidote to comparison is gratitude. Gratitude shifts your attention away from what is missing and directs it toward what is present. It does not eliminate ambition. It stabilizes it. When you begin from appreciation instead of lack, your goals become purposeful instead of desperate. Start noticing when comparison happens. It often appears automatically. You scroll through images. You hear about someone's achievement. You witness someone's lifestyle. And without conscious thought, your mind begins calculating your position relative to theirs. Pause when this occurs. Ask yourself, what do I have right now that deserves appreciation? This question redirects your focus inward. It grounds you in reality instead of illusion. Gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about acknowledging that your life contains value, even while you are improving it. Write down 3 to 5 things daily that you appreciate. They do not need to be dramatic. The ability to breathe deeply, access to clean water, a quiet place to rest, the opportunity to learn, the progress you made this week. These are foundations. When you repeatedly focus on what you have, your brain adjusts its baseline. It begins scanning for abundance instead of deficiency. Over time, this shift reduces anxiety and increases stability. Detail strengthens gratitude. Instead of writing, "I am grateful for my health," describe what it allows you to do. Walk. Think clearly. Move freely. When you expand on appreciation, it becomes vivid. Vivid gratitude carries emotional weight. Emotional weight rewires perception. Gratitude also reveals growth. Reflect on your past. Consider challenges you overcame, goals you once had that are now normal parts of your life. Often you are living in a reality that your past self once wished for, but because you adapted, you overlook it. Comparison erases progress. Gratitude highlights it. Another benefit of gratitude is emotional resilience. When difficulties appear, comparison magnifies pain. You see others thriving and feel isolated in struggle. But gratitude provides perspective. Even during hardship, there are still elements of stability, support, strength, lessons, opportunities. This perspective does not deny pain. It balances it. Limiting exposure to triggers is practical wisdom. Social media often presents curated perfection. When you consume highlight after highlight, you forget that behind every image are unseen challenges. If scrolling consistently leaves you feeling inadequate, reduce it. Protect your mental space. Replace comparison time with creation time. Instead of observing someone else's progress, invest in your own. Read, train, reflect, build. When your attention is directed toward growth, envy decreases. Self-compassion complements gratitude. When comparison arises, treat yourself with understanding. Growth occurs at different speeds for different people. Your timeline is not inferior because it is different. You are allowed to move at your pace. Celebrate others genuinely. When you are grounded in gratitude, another person's success does not threaten you. It inspires you. You recognize that their progress does not diminish yours. There is space for multiple paths to flourish. Gratitude stabilizes ambition. Without it, ambition becomes fueled by insecurity. With it, ambition becomes fueled by purpose. You pursue improvement because you value growth, not because you fear being left behind. Presence strengthens gratitude. When you focus on the present moment, comparison fades. You cannot fully appreciate your breath while measuring your life against someone else's. You cannot deeply enjoy a meal while evaluating your status. Mindfulness anchors you in what is real. Over time, gratitude becomes your default response. Instead of asking, "Why do they have more?" you ask, "How can I appreciate what I have and build from it?" This shift transforms restlessness into peace. Confidence grows from recognition of value, not superiority over others. When you see your own progress clearly, you walk taller, not because you are ahead of someone else, but because you are aligned with your own journey. Bitterness dissolves in gratitude. Resentment fades when appreciation expands. You begin to realize that life has given you opportunities, lessons, and strengths unique to your path. Every day presents a choice. Compare or appreciate, compete or create, envy or build. Choose appreciation deliberately. Write it, speak it, think it, practice it, until it becomes natural. When gratitude replaces comparison, solitude becomes peaceful. You no longer feel behind. You no longer measure your quiet progress against someone else's visible milestones. You feel steady, and steadiness is the foundation of happiness alone. Chapter 9. If you never spend time alone, you will never truly know what excites you. Most people move through life surrounded by noise, influence, and expectation. From morning to night, they consume opinions. They adapt to trends. They adjust their behavior to fit in. And over time, they forget to ask one essential question: what genuinely makes me come alive? Without solitude, that question remains buried. When you are constantly around others, it becomes easy to confuse performance with passion. You may pursue goals because they impress people. You may adopt interests because they are popular. You may chase achievements because they bring recognition. But when the room is empty and no one is watching, what remains? Solitude strips away performance. In quiet moments, you do not have to impress anyone. You do not have to defend your choices. You do not have to pretend enthusiasm. You can be honest. And honesty is the beginning of discovery. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. If you have spent years adjusting to external expectations, silence may expose confusion. You may realize you do not actually know what excites you. That realization is not failure. It is clarity. Discovery requires patience. Do not expect immediate answers. When you begin spending intentional time alone, your mind may feel restless. But as you repeat the practice, patterns begin to appear. Notice what thoughts return often. Notice what ideas energize you. Notice which activities make time disappear. Energy is a signal. When you engage in something and feel drained quickly, that is information. When you engage in something and feel focused, curious, and motivated, that is also information. Solitude gives you space to observe these signals without interference. Journaling accelerates this discovery. Write freely. Do not filter. Let your mind wander onto the page. Over time, themes will repeat. You may see consistent interests: creating, solving problems, helping others, building systems, teaching, designing, learning. These patterns are clues. Experiment privately. Try new skills without announcing them. Read about subjects that intrigue you. Build something small. Explore without pressure to succeed publicly. When you experiment without an audience, you remove the fear of judgment. Authentic excitement survives without validation. If you only enjoy something when others praise you for it, it may not be true passion. But if you enjoy it, even when no one knows, that is alignment. Solitude also frees your imagination. In group settings, dreams are often shaped by doubt. Someone questions your idea. Someone projects their fear. Someone suggests a safer option. In solitude, your imagination expands. You can explore possibilities without limitation. Many great ideas begin in private thought. Ask yourself deeper questions. What problems do I feel drawn to solve? What environments energize me? What conversations stimulate me? What kind of impact would feel meaningful? These questions require quiet reflection. Do not underestimate simple excitement. It does not need to look dramatic. It might be reading quietly for hours. It might be organizing information. It might be crafting something with your hands. It might be refining a skill repeatedly. Excitement is not defined by how impressive it appears to others. It is defined by how alive it feels within you. Solitude also reveals misalignment. You may discover that some goals you have been chasing do not energize you. They may have been borrowed ambitions. This realization can feel unsettling, but it prevents years of misdirected effort. Clarity saves time. Consistency deepens discovery. Spending time alone once is not enough. Make solitude habitual. Protect it. Treat it as an appointment with your future. In those quiet sessions, your identity becomes clearer. As you identify what excites you, confidence grows. When you know what you are drawn toward, decisions become easier. You stop asking everyone for direction. You begin leading yourself. This leadership builds independence. Excitement also aligns with values. When your actions reflect what matters to you, energy increases. Misalignment drains energy. Solitude allows you to define your values clearly. Integrity between values and action generates fulfillment. Interests evolve. What excites you today may change in years to come. Regular solitude ensures you remain aligned with your current self instead of clinging to outdated identities. You do not need constant guidance to discover excitement. You need space, patience, observation, honesty. When you commit to exploring yourself in solitude, life shifts. You stop living by default. You start living by design. Days feel intentional instead of reactive. Energy feels directed instead of scattered. Decisions feel aligned instead of forced. Solitude becomes productive, not empty. When you know what excites you, being alone no longer feels like waiting. It feels like building. And building with clarity is one of the most powerful forms of happiness. Chapter 10. Every day you wake up, you face a decision that will quietly shape your entire future. Grow or remain the same. Growth is not dramatic. It is not loud. It rarely announces itself with celebration. It is built in ordinary mornings, in disciplined afternoons, in quiet evenings, when you choose improvement over distraction. And if you commit to personal growth every single day, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel complete, even when you are alone. Many people believe completeness will arrive through another person, the right partner, the right friend group, the right recognition, but no one can fill a space that you have refused to build within yourself. Completeness is constructed, not delivered. Growth is a daily practice. It begins with responsibility. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop blaming timing, resources, or circumstances. You may not control everything around you, but you always control your effort. Each day presents an opportunity to strengthen your mind, body, and character. The only question is whether you will take it. Ask yourself every morning, what small action can I take today that makes me better than yesterday? It may be reading 10 pages, practicing a skill for 20 minutes, exercising when you feel unmotivated, reflecting honestly on a weakness. These actions seem small, but repetition transforms them into power. Growth compounds. You may not notice change after one day, but after 30 days, your thinking sharpens. After 90 days, your discipline strengthens. After a year, your identity shifts. You are no longer someone trying to improve. You are someone who improves as a habit. Discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Some mornings you will feel energized. Other mornings you will feel resistant. If you only act when you feel inspired, your growth will stall. Discipline is acting regardless of mood. It is honoring your commitment to yourself, even when it is inconvenient. Solitude is an advantage here. When you are alone, you control your time. You eliminate performance. You can focus deeply. Instead of seeing solitude as emptiness, view it as opportunity. Time free from distraction to refine yourself. Mental growth is essential. Read material that challenges your perspective. Study ideas that stretch your understanding. Reflect on mistakes without defensiveness. Each insight expands your awareness. Awareness builds wisdom. Wisdom builds confidence. Physical growth reinforces mental strength. Move your body daily. Exercise does more than build muscle. It strengthens resilience. It improves emotional regulation. It trains you to push through discomfort. That discipline carries into every area of life. Emotional growth matters equally. Learn to regulate your reactions. Practice patience. Speak deliberately. Observe your triggers and address them. Emotional maturity stabilizes your relationships and strengthens your independence. Track your progress. Write down what you accomplish each day. Keep a record of effort, not just outcomes. When doubt appears, and it will, you can look back and see evidence of growth. Evidence silences insecurity. Resilience develops through challenge. You will fail. You will make mistakes. You will face setbacks. Growth does not eliminate difficulty. It strengthens your response to it. Instead of collapsing, you adjust. Instead of quitting, you learn. Over time, you notice a shift in identity. You begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, improving. This identity produces completeness. You no longer feel empty in solitude because you are actively building yourself. Completeness is not perfection. You will still have flaws. You will still encounter uncertainty. But you trust yourself to continue growing. That trust fills the space where dependency once lived. Align growth with vision. Ask yourself where you want to be in 5 or 10 years. Then act today in ways that support that direction. Even small steps accumulate toward meaningful outcomes. Surround yourself with influence that encourages growth. Books, ideas, conversations that elevate your thinking. Even in solitude, you can learn from others' experiences, but your progress remains your responsibility. When growth becomes your lifestyle, solitude transforms. Alone time becomes productive. Instead of waiting for someone to complete you, you complete yourself through action. Each morning, you invest in your potential. Each afternoon, you refine your discipline. Each evening, you reflect and prepare. Day after day, you reinforce the belief that your life is in your hands. Eventually, you reach a point where you do not fear being alone. You do not feel incomplete without constant attention. You stand independently because you know you are evolving. This is the reward of daily growth. It creates pride, stability, self-respect, and when you respect yourself deeply, you no longer need external confirmation to feel whole. Chapter 11. When you build yourself in solitude, relationships stop being a rescue mission and start becoming a choice. Many people enter relationships not from strength, but from fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of silence. Fear of facing their own thoughts. They look for someone to distract them, to validate them, to fill an internal emptiness they have never addressed. And because of that, they tolerate what they should not tolerate. They accept less than they deserve. They cling to connections that weaken them. But when you have trained yourself to stand comfortably alone, everything changes. You no longer look at relationships as a solution to loneliness. You see them as an addition to an already stable life. This shift transforms the way you connect. You are not desperate for attention. You are not seeking constant reassurance. You are not afraid of distance. You are choosing. Emotional independence does not mean isolation. It does not mean you stop valuing connection. It means you stop depending on it for survival. When someone leaves, you feel the loss, but you do not collapse. When someone disagrees with you, you listen, but you do not lose your identity. Your foundation remains intact. This stability begins with self-regulation. If you have learned to calm your own negative thoughts, validate your own worth, and create your own structure, you carry security within you. And secure people connect differently. They communicate clearly. They set boundaries. They respect themselves. Boundaries are a direct result of internal strength. When you fear loneliness, you avoid boundaries because you do not want to risk losing someone. But when you are comfortable alone, you can say no without panic. You can walk away without feeling destroyed. You can protect your standards. Standards rise when fear decreases. When you are no longer afraid of being by yourself, you stop accepting relationships that drain you. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop lowering expectations just to maintain company. You value quality over quantity. Healthy relationships require two stable individuals, not two incomplete halves searching for rescue. When you are grounded in yourself, you give without depletion. You support without sacrificing identity. You love without begging for validation. Attachment security grows from self-security. When you regulate your own emotions, you are less reactive. You do not interpret silence as rejection immediately. You do not assume worst-case scenarios without evidence. You respond instead of reacting. This creates calm In relationships, you also stop overanalyzing interactions. When you validate yourself, you do not replay conversations wondering if you were liked enough. You trust your authenticity. You speak with clarity. You accept that not everyone will align with you, and that is acceptable. Rejection becomes redirection, not devastation. Solitude builds this resilience. Every time you sit alone and feel stable, you reinforce the message that you are capable of standing on your own. This message becomes embedded in your identity, and identity shapes behavior. When you enter relationships from this place, you are not seeking someone to complete you. You are seeking someone to complement you. There is a difference. Completion implies deficiency. Complement implies strength. Freedom is born here. You can enjoy connection deeply because you are not secretly afraid of losing it. You can appreciate someone's presence without clinging to it. You can allow space without panic. And if a relationship ends, you grieve, but you remain whole. This wholeness is the result of consistent self-work. It is built through routine, discipline, reflection, and growth. It is reinforced through gratitude and self-validation. It is strengthened by facing loneliness and transforming it into power. Relationships become healthier because they are not burdened by your unmet internal needs. You do not demand constant reassurance. You do not expect someone else to manage your emotions. You handle yourself. And when two self-sufficient individuals connect, the relationship becomes balanced. There is mutual respect instead of dependence. There is shared growth instead of control. Solitude prepared you for this. It taught you to listen to your own thoughts. It taught you to regulate your reactions. It taught you to value your standards. It taught you to find joy in simplicity. All of these skills transfer into connection. When you are alone and content, you radiate stability. Stability attracts alignment. People sense confidence that is not forced. You speak less from insecurity and more from clarity. This is the paradox. When you no longer need someone to complete you, you are finally ready to connect fully. But even if connection does not come immediately, you remain steady. You continue growing. You continue building. You continue refining your character. You do not pause your life waiting for someone else to arrive. That is independence. And independence does not make you distant. It makes you strong. Chapter 12. If you do not master your attention, the world will master it for you. Distraction is the modern escape from solitude. The moment silence appears, you reach for stimulation, a screen, a notification, a voice, something to fill the gap. Not because you truly need it, but because you have trained your mind to avoid stillness. But attention is not neutral. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. And wherever your energy flows consistently, your life begins to shape itself. When your attention is scattered, your life feels scattered. When your attention is controlled, your life feels directed. Most people underestimate how much distraction weakens their happiness alone. Endless scrolling fragments focus. Constant notifications train impatience. Rapid content consumption shortens attention span. Over time, the brain becomes conditioned to crave novelty. Silence feels dull. Stillness feels uncomfortable. But this discomfort is not weakness. It is withdrawal from overstimulation. The brain operates on reward loops. Each new piece of information releases a small burst of stimulation. The more frequently you feed that loop, the more you depend on it. Breaking this cycle requires intention. Start by observing your habits. How often do you check your phone without purpose? How often do you consume content simply to avoid thinking? Awareness is the first step toward control. Create quiet containers in your day. Specific blocks of time where no new information enters your mind, no scrolling, no background noise, no interruptions. At first, this may feel unnatural, but over time, your focus strengthens. Single tasking rebuilds attention. Do one thing fully. Read without checking your phone. Write without switching tabs. Walk without headphones. When you focus deeply, your mind regains strength. Deep focus produces satisfaction that distraction never can. Distraction gives quick stimulation, but leaves emptiness. Focus gives slow progress, but builds fulfillment. When you control your attention, you also control your emotional state. Constant exposure to news, opinions, and comparison amplifies anxiety. Selective exposure reduces it. Choose what enters your mind deliberately. Attention is like sunlight. When scattered, it warms nothing. When concentrated, it ignites. Replace escape with intention. When you feel the urge to distract yourself, pause. Ask what you are avoiding. Often distraction masks discomfort, boredom, uncertainty, insecurity. Instead of running, face it briefly. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Each time you resist impulsive distraction, you strengthen discipline. Attention mastery also enhances solitude. When you can sit quietly and direct your focus intentionally, you extract richness from simple moments. You notice details. You think clearly. You generate ideas instead of consuming them endlessly. This is creative power. You begin producing instead of reacting, building instead of comparing, reflecting instead of scrolling. Reduce digital clutter. Disable unnecessary notifications. Designate specific times for information consumption. Protect your mornings from immediate input. Guard your evenings from endless stimulation. Your mental environment shapes your inner world. Think of attention as your life force. If you give it away constantly, you will feel depleted. If you invest it wisely, you will feel strong. Over time, as your attention strengthens, you notice increased calmness. You are less reactive, less restless, more present. Presence is the foundation of happiness alone. When your attention is stable, silence becomes comfortable. You no longer panic in stillness. You no longer feel compelled to fill every gap with noise. You enjoy the clarity that comes with focused awareness. This discipline also improves every other area of your life. Work becomes more productive. Conversations become deeper. Reflection becomes clearer. Growth accelerates because your energy is not fragmented. The world will always compete for your focus. That will not change. What changes is your response. You decide where your attention goes. And when you decide deliberately, your life becomes deliberate. Solitude thrives in controlled attention. It becomes fertile ground for ideas, improvement, and peace. Master your attention, and you master your experience. Chapter 13. There is a difference between being alone and being healed. You can sit in a quiet room and still carry noise inside your mind. You can avoid people and still avoid yourself. Solitude does not automatically produce strength. It reveals what is already there. And if you want to be truly happy alone, you must use solitude not only for productivity, but for healing. When the world becomes quiet, old memories surface, regrets replay, embarrassing moments return, unfinished conversations echo. Many people run from this. They fill their schedule so tightly that they never have to feel unresolved emotion. But unprocessed experiences do not disappear. They wait. Solitude gives them space to rise. Instead of resisting, face them deliberately. Sit with a memory that still unsettles you. Ask yourself what it taught you. Ask what responsibility you can take. Ask what you can release. Healing begins when you shift from blame to ownership. Ownership does not mean self-condemnation. It means recognizing your role and deciding to improve. When you stop replaying the past as a victim and start analyzing it as a student, growth begins. Emotional processing reduces mental weight. When you name an unresolved emotion, anger, guilt, shame, it becomes manageable. When left unnamed, it remains heavy and undefined. Write about it, not to relive pain, but to extract lessons. What pattern do you see? What boundary was missing? What standard was compromised? Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Solitude also reveals fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of inadequacy. These fears influence decisions quietly. They shape relationships. They limit ambition. When you bring them into awareness, they lose authority. Ask yourself directly, what am I afraid will happen if I fully pursue growth? What am I avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? Courage begins with this honesty. Healing requires forgiveness. Forgive yourself for past ignorance. You acted with the knowledge you had at the time. Growth means you now know better. Holding on to old mistakes does not strengthen you. Learning from them does. Forgive others where possible, not because they deserve it, but because resentment binds your energy. You do not need to maintain connection to release bitterness. You release it internally. Unresolved emotion consumes attention. Attention consumed by the past weakens your present. When you process emotion intentionally, your mind clears. There is also a physiological dimension. When you confront and process stress, instead of suppressing it, your nervous system recalibrates. Chronic tension reduces. You breathe deeper. You sleep better. Calmness increases. Solitude becomes a recalibration space. Set aside time weekly for deeper reflection. Ask structured questions. What went well this week? What triggered me? What pattern am I repeating? What action will I adjust? This transforms solitude into a laboratory for personal evolution. Healing is not dramatic. It is consistent. It happens in small realizations, in decisions to respond differently next time, in the courage to set firmer boundaries, in the discipline to align behavior with values. As you heal, you notice increased lightness. You no longer carry certain emotional burdens. Situations that once triggered intense reactions feel manageable. Conversations feel clearer. Decisions feel cleaner. This clarity enhances happiness alone. You are not battling unresolved emotion constantly. You are not haunted by unexamined patterns. You are progressing. Remember, solitude is not escape. It is confrontation with yourself. But confrontation does not have to be harsh. It can be steady and intentional. Approach yourself with curiosity instead of criticism. Ask, what can I learn here? Instead of, why am I like this? This shift reduces shame and increases growth. Healing deepens independence. When you resolve internal conflicts, you stop projecting them onto others. Relationships become healthier. Reactions become calmer. You become internally aligned. Alignment produces peace. Peace produces strength. And strength makes solitude powerful rather than painful. Chapter 14. Happiness alone is not just about peace. It is about meaning. You can master silence. You can regulate your thoughts. You can build discipline. But if your life lacks direction, solitude will eventually feel empty again. Meaning is what transforms quiet time into powerful time. It is what turns isolation into purpose. Many people feel restless when alone, because they are not building toward anything. Their days are reactive. They consume information. They complete tasks. They survive routines. But they are not connected to a larger direction. Without direction, silence amplifies emptiness. Meaning answers the question, why does my effort matter? You do not need a dramatic mission to have meaning. Meaning is built through alignment between your actions and your values. If you value growth, learning daily creates meaning. If you value contribution, helping even one person creates meaning. If you value discipline, honoring your routine creates meaning. When your actions align with what you believe matters, solitude becomes sacred. Instead of asking, who will notice my effort? You begin asking, does this action align with who I want to become? That shift changes everything. Your work is no longer about recognition. It is about integrity. Integrity builds internal strength. Create a simple personal mission. Not something for the world to applaud. Something for you to live by. It could be as clear as, I commit to becoming mentally strong. Or, I commit to living with discipline and clarity. Or, I commit to improving 1% every day. This mission becomes your anchor. When you wake up, you know why you are acting. When you face difficulty, you know what you are protecting. When you are alone, you are not lost. You are building. Meaning also grows through contribution. Even in solitude, you can contribute. Write something valuable. Develop a skill that serves others. Prepare yourself to give at a higher level in the future. Contribution does not require constant presence around people. It begins with preparation. The mind thrives when it feels useful. Research consistently shows that purpose increases resilience. When people connect their effort to a larger reason, stress becomes more manageable. Pain feels lighter. Discipline becomes easier. You tolerate difficulty because you know what it serves. Without purpose, discipline feels like punishment. With purpose, discipline feels like devotion. Devotion creates fulfillment. Look at your daily actions and ask honestly, do they move me towards something meaningful? Or am I simply passing time? Time will pass regardless. The question is whether you are shaping yourself during that passage. Solitude provides uninterrupted space for building meaningful habits. Instead of filling quiet with distraction, fill it with direction. Study what matters to you. Practice what aligns with your future. Reflect on your progress. Create 3 categories for your day. 1 action that builds your mind, 1 that strengthens your body, and 1 that aligns with your long-term vision. These small acts compound into a meaningful life. Meaning also protects you from emotional dependency. When your life has direction, you are not desperate for someone else to provide excitement. You are not searching for constant stimulation. You are engaged in your own path. This engagement radiates confidence. You stop drifting. You stop waiting. You start designing. Design requires clarity. Clarity requires reflection. Reflection requires solitude. See the connection. When you are alone and aligned with purpose, silence becomes powerful. You are not empty. You are focused. You are building something real. Meaning transforms loneliness into preparation. Instead of thinking, I am alone, you think, I am refining. Instead of thinking, no one sees my effort, you think, this effort shapes my future. That mindset builds resilience. You do not need grand recognition. You need alignment. You need direction. You need consistent effort towards something that matters to you. Over time, this builds internal fulfillment. You wake up with intention. You move through your day with clarity. You end your day with pride. And pride built from integrity is deeper than pleasure built from distraction. Solitude becomes meaningful because you are not simply existing in it, you are creating within it. That is the difference between isolation and intentional growth. Chapter 15. Emotional independence is not the same as emotional coldness. Some people misunderstand strength. They believe that to be happy alone, they must detach completely. They convince themselves that needing no one means feeling nothing. They build walls instead of boundaries. They suppress emotion instead of regulating it. But suppression is not strength. It is avoidance. True emotional independence means you can feel deeply without losing control. You can care without collapsing. You can connect without depending. This balance is what makes solitude empowering instead of isolating. When you have trained your mind in silence, processed your emotions honestly, built routine and purpose, something shifts. You no longer panic when someone pulls away. You no longer overreact when expectations are not met. You feel emotion, but you remain steady. The difference lies in regulation. When a trigger appears, rejection, disagreement, distance, pause. Notice your physical response. Tightness in the chest, faster breathing, restlessness. Instead of reacting immediately, breathe intentionally. Label the emotion. I feel disappointed. I feel insecure. I feel frustrated. Naming emotion reduces its intensity. It activates the part of the brain responsible for reasoning instead of pure reaction. This simple habit strengthens control. Emotional independence also means not outsourcing your self-worth during conflict. If someone criticizes you, you evaluate the feedback without attaching it to your identity. If someone withdraws, you consider context before assuming abandonment. This prevents unnecessary suffering. Boundaries protect emotional stability. A boundary is not punishment. It is clarity. It communicates what behavior aligns with your standards and what does not. When you are afraid of loneliness, you compromise boundaries to avoid losing connection. But when you are secure alone, you maintain them calmly. Calm boundaries are powerful. They communicate self-respect without aggression. They preserve connection without sacrificing integrity. Emotional independence also involves releasing the need to control outcomes. You cannot control others' feelings or decisions. You can only control your response. When you internalize this truth, anxiety decreases. You stop trying to manage everyone's reactions. You focus on your own behavior. This creates freedom. Freedom allows warmth. You can offer support without expecting repayment. You can express appreciation without needing validation. You can love without fear of loss dominating your behavior. Solitude builds this capacity because it teaches you to sit with discomfort. If you can handle loneliness calmly, you can handle temporary distance in relationships calmly. If you can regulate negative thoughts privately, you can regulate emotional conflict publicly. The nervous system adapts through repetition. The more often you practice calm response instead of impulsive reaction, the more natural stability becomes. Over time, you notice something profound. You are less reactive, less dramatic, less dependent on reassurance. But you are not colder. You are clearer. Clarity strengthens connection. People feel safe around emotionally independent individuals. Why? Because their reactions are predictable. Their presence is steady. They do not create chaos over small discomforts. This steadiness is attractive. It signals maturity. It is important to remember that independence does not eliminate vulnerability. You can still share fears. You can still ask for support. The difference is that support enhances your stability rather than replacing it. You are capable alone, but you still value connection. That balance is strength. When you master emotional independence, solitude no longer feels threatening. It feels grounding. You trust yourself to handle emotion without external rescue. You become resilient without becoming rigid, and resilience without rigidity is powerful. Chapter 16. Live as if your future self is quietly watching you. Every private decision you make is shaping someone you have not met yet. The version of you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That future self is not built in dramatic moments. It is constructed in silence, in small choices, in unseen discipline. When you are alone, you are in direct conversation with that future identity. Most people think of time as something that happens to them. Days pass, years pass, circumstances change, but time is also something you shape. Each habit repeated sends a signal forward. Each standard maintained strengthens a trajectory. Each compromise weakens it. Ask yourself regularly, would my future self respect this choice? This question changes behavior immediately. It shifts you from impulse to intention, from comfort to long-term vision, from distraction to direction. Visualization strengthens this practice. Close your eyes and imagine a stronger version of yourself, more disciplined, more calm, more skilled, more emotionally steady. See how that person carries themselves, how they speak, how they respond to difficulty. Now ask, what did they do consistently to become that person? The answer will never be dramatic shortcuts. It will be small repeated actions, focused mornings, controlled attention, honest reflection, private discipline. Identity is shaped by repetition. The brain builds identity around behavior patterns. When you repeatedly act with discipline, you begin to see yourself as disciplined. When you repeatedly choose growth, you identify as someone who grows. Over time, this identity becomes automatic. This is how solitude transforms you. Instead of using alone time to escape, you use it to align with your future self. You design your environment to support that identity. You remove distractions. You organize your space. You structure your day. Environment influences behavior more than motivation does. A clear desk encourages focus. A planned schedule reduces drift. A phone out of reach protects attention. Design your environment as if your future self already lives there. Implementation matters. Decide in advance what you will do at specific times. At 7 a.m., I read. At 6 p.m., I train. Pre-decisions reduce negotiation. Negotiation weakens discipline. Clear commitments strengthen it. Each time you follow through, you reinforce self-trust. Self-trust accumulates quietly. One kept promise becomes 2. 2 become 10. 10 become identity. Identity becomes confidence. And confidence built privately is unshakable publicly. Your future self is shaped by what you tolerate today. If you tolerate constant distraction, future clarity weakens. If you tolerate inconsistency, future discipline erodes. But if you maintain standards, future stability strengthens. There is also a deeper layer. When you act with integrity and solitude, you create internal coherence. Your actions align with your values. This alignment produces peace. There is no internal conflict between what you believe and what you do. Internal coherence is powerful. It reduces anxiety because you are not divided. It increases clarity because your direction is consistent. Time amplifies consistency. Small efforts repeated over months become transformation. Small compromises repeated over months become decline. The difference is rarely visible immediately, but it becomes undeniable eventually. Think of solitude as a forge. It shapes you. Pressure strengthens steel. Repetition hardens identity. Reflection sharpens purpose. When you live as if your future self is watching, you move differently. You waste less time. You speak more intentionally. You choose growth over comfort more often. You begin to experience pride in private effort. Pride without audience is strength. This mindset also reduces fear of missing out. When your actions align with long-term vision, you are less tempted by temporary excitement. You understand trade-offs. You accept that not every opportunity is aligned with your direction. Clarity replaces confusion. Over time, you become someone who does not need external monitoring. You self-correct. You self-motivate. You self-regulate. That independence is freedom. Solitude is no longer empty. It is strategic. It is preparation. It is construction. And the person you are building will thank you for every disciplined choice made when no one else was watching.